Pixar released a movie called Soul, which is actually released in December on Disney Plus right now, which I believe it was supposed to either been released on July or June. Due to the pandemic, things had been canceled, and that's why Pixar was just like, hey, we are going to post it on Disney Plus now. And surprisingly, it was actually free. Considering Mulan, you had to pay $30 for it, but this was actually free, so Merry Christmas to everyone. So let's get to the concept on this. Do we actually think Pixar Soul was actually meant for kids? Because a lot of people are now saying it's too dark or too deep for kids nowadays. Now, the thing is, when I saw it, in the beginning it was actually kind of slow, but then by the middle of it got more, I wouldn't say faster, but it actually more progressive story, and it actually became a story. And then the ending parts, it could have been better, but we'll get into all those in a minute. But the thing is with Soul, it was a good movie. It had lots of good stories into it. It got into life. It just had lots of fun characters and stuff into it. But the thing is, it just seems a little deep. And I don't know if this would be really appropriated for like little kids, because I feel like it might scare them in a way, but this actually does tell a good story. So this is about a guy named Joe Gardner, and he's a musician, a jazz musician, which personally, I'm not a jazz person, but when it comes to piano, I absolutely loved it. He actually had a dream to play with Dorothy Williams, and he actually got his dream, but he was a part-time teacher being in middle school. The teacher actually came in and says, hey, you are going to be a full-time teacher now. He said that he would kind of accept it. I can't remember if he actually accepted it or not, but he was kind of debating on it because he wanted to play with Dorothy M. One time he went to his mom's work call, and apparently he got to be in the part now. Apparently him, and of course just saying, everyone's clumsy, but you also gotta be careful where you're walking as well. He left his mom's place and he was just walking around, and he was telling someone on the phone the good news. So what happened is that he fell into a hole, which is not really a spoiler because it happened in the trailer, but after that he went on this little conveyor belt, took him to the great beyond. But then after that, he's like, what's going on? And he said, my time's not up yet. Which is understandable. Lots of us in life wants us to have a good, long living life. We want to live our dreams. We want to pursue our life. We want to do things a little bit more longer. That's why some of us don't really want to die so young. And that's why we want to keep living our dream. So he kept fighting, wanting to go back. But then he landed into the great before, which is where the souls actually get some of their personalities before they return to Earth. Well, I wouldn't say return to Earth, but before they go to Earth. He went to his place, and then he says, where am I at? And then there's these characters called Jerry's and Terry's, which is very interesting and weird. But technically, the one scene I do like is whenever one of the Jerry's, say, "Quiet coyotes." It's my favorite line right there. But the thing is that he's trying to find a way to get back into Earth. So he found this little hole where Earth was showing, but then after that he kept jumping into it, but then he kept returning. He was technically dead, but he was in a coma, but that's going to be in a later explanation. Apparently they said, well, trying to show him something, and he's like, well, this is not my life. He's like, I'm supposed to be living right now. So what they show him, they said, no, this is where you're supposed to be. And he said, I'm not supposed to be dead right now. Instead of him going to the great beyond, he became a mentor. He took that opportunity and went to the youth seminar, and he became a mentor for 22.
22 has been at the youth seminar for quite some time and has had such notable mentors as Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, and Mother Teresa.
I made her cry.
Ignore that.
Put me down.
We're truly glad to have you here, Dr. Borgenson. It is an honor having you prepare 22 for Earth.
I'm gonna make you wish you never died.
Most people wish that, 22. Off you go, bye!
Now, I will say 22 is a bit of a mischievous character. I think she was quite fun, and I know lots of people are just like, well, she's not really a fun character, or like she's an okay character, which technically, if you think about it, she is a fun little character because you get to see her personality, because technically with her, she rather stay as a soul. She don't really want to live in Earth, which is self-explanatory because, even though life is miserable in some cases, not always, but sometimes life can be hard, it can be miserable, and be mixed emotion. With 22, I can kind of see her perspective, but there's also fun in life as well. And that's why Joe Gardner was actually trying to show her the life. So she talks about how other mentors she was with, and they kind of started hating her, and I thought that was actually a pretty funny scene. And then Joe was like, no, let me show you my side. So he went to this place, which I forgot, and he showed her his life. As again, with him being a musician, his dad actually showed him how musician kind of works, or that's how Joe actually became in love with jazz, and that's when he says, hey, I want to be a musician myself. From that point, it showed in his life that he's been rejected by so many people, and how he wants to be a musician, but then people are just like, no, we're so sorry. And I guess that's how he got his job as a music teacher. But then there was one scene where it just recently happened, and he said, hey, this just happened to me. And it was whenever he was in the coma, because he's in a hospital right now. He didn't, like, die just yet, as one of the Jerry said, but he's in a coma. So that's why he's trying to figure out a way how to get back. From that point forward, I will say there's a lot of Easter eggs in the movie, but I don't really personally know all of them because I don't really focus on Easter eggs. But the one thing I must say is that there's a lots and lots of Pizza Planet trucks in almost all the movies. Not all, just most Pixar movies. They were trying to find some things, that would interest 22. And, 22 was trying to show Joe, you can't really hurt a soul, you can't really taste, you can't touch, you can't do anything here. But she was trying to find her purpose. But my favorite scene is when she kept saying meh a lot, so that was my second favorite part. So after they left this place, they actually tried to find some new stuff for her, but then after that, Joe was like, were you trying not to have fun? But then she's like, oh yeah, I was trying to have fun, but that wasn't interesting me. Apparently, I guess it was Joe's time up, because apparently, I think they said there was no time in that place, but then after that, they said, oh, well, it's time's up, it's time for you to go now. So after that, Joe's like, no, it's not our time yet. So then 22 was like, wait. There's something else we haven't tried yet. So, let me just do this real quick. So after that, they're like, okay, well, you still got a couple more times until we take you. They went into this little other realm, which I don't know what it's really called, but it's still part of the souls. So this is the part where I guess if you meditate long, then I guess, you're, in the soul world, I guess. But this is actually where most of the souls turn into these bad creatures, which I don't remember the name for those. It just is kind of more dark, I guess you could say, because I guess once you're a soul and then you have, no life or purpose, and you're not really a bad creature, but it just looks like a bad creature. And so there's these other souls where they have to help them out. So this guy, he was this bad creature, and he became a soul again. And the most funniest part is whenever he came back to Earth, he's like, what am I doing with my life? And then he just tossed his computer off the side. I'm just like, hey, that's literally me. Especially whenever it comes schoolwork and stuff. So they told Joe to meditate so long to remember what was going on. So it shows New York City, which to me, I felt like that was good, but especially with it being jazz related, I feel like it should be kind of New Orleans. To me, I just feel like that should be there because I feel like New Orleans is more the jazzy type, but New York was actually pretty interesting to see. He was meditating, and then after that he saw his body at the hospital, and of course Mr. Mittens, which I think that was the cat's name, was laying on his lap. Joe and 22 I think Joe was trying to jump, and he grabbed 22, and they were going to Earth. I just figured whenever I saw the movie, Joe would be back in his body, and 22 would be in the cat. I really wasn't expecting it, but technically, if you really think about it, when you see the poster, you're just like, what is the cat for? What is the purpose of the cat? Well, technically, it got explained because Joe was actually the cat, and 22 was Joe. Now, the fun thing about this is that at least 22 got to experience what life on Earth is about. Now, what concerned me is that, when you first hear them, you hear 22 in Joe's body, and then you hear Joe in the cat's body. So we're just like, can people hear the voices, or is it just going to sound normal to them? So technically, it got explained, because when Joe was speaking, he was meowing, and then 22 sounds like Joe. So I thought that was pretty clever and unique. And as some people say, the only reason why Joe and 22 can understand each other is because, they're in separate bodies, but it's because they can only understand each other, if that even makes sense. So after that, Joe was trying to teach 22 everything about Earth. So they actually left the hospital, and they went around. And then, of course, if you know New York, they are a very, very loud, crowded place. That is one reason why I don't want to go, because they were very crowded. So 22 actually got kind of scared, and Joe was just like, hey, no, we need to go. I feel like whenever they went to Earth with, Joe being the cat and then 22 being Joe, I felt like Joe was just like, oh, it's all about me. It's me, me, me. Which I understand, he wants his life purpose. He had a gig that night. But still, like, you got a new friend and you're trying to mentor them still. So, you just need to kind of teach them around. There was a scene whenever 22 actually stopped because, she was getting confused. Which I think they said you should never stop because with New York, you're always constantly moving. Joe actually scratched 22, which scared her, and she ran off. And he tried to find her, but like she was in like a little corner, all scared, which is understandable. And so she didn't know what was going on. And then of course, the scene whenever he was trying to eat the pizza and say, what, there's no smell or taste or anything, he actually went to the pizza store and got pizza. And then, of course, we saw a rat pizza, which I think that has to reference something in real life. I'm not sure. But yeah, there was a pizza rat there. Joe went back to 22 and gave her pizza. And she's like, ooh, what is that delicious smell? So when she got the pizza, she ate it. And she said, oh, that's so good. They were trying to find a way back to his home. So they got back to his apartment. But beforehand, he actually bumped into Dorothy Ann Williams, which technically was a big shocker, and Joe was scared, and he was like, no, let's just keep on going, and he's like, well, I was not expecting that. He got back to the apartment, and then Connie came along, which is one of his students, and says, oh, well, I'm going to quit. She tried to quit, but then she didn't. But 22, in all, like, was just trying to experience life, and, just trying to see new things. But then Joe kind of got in the way, and just says, no, this is my body, and I want it back. They tried to find a way back to get into it. They found a way, and then of course the thing is with this scene right here is that 22 was just sitting, looking at the beautiful sky and stuff, and then like this little seed thing came down, and then I think she might have found her purpose that way. But the problem is that Joe said something, which I can't really remember, but Joe said something to hurt 22, and he's like, well, I want my body back, this is my time, I need to go. But the thing is, in life, you need to be careful on what you say to people, because it can actually hurt them, because if you say the wrong thing, it's going to affect them greatly, and then they're just going to be hurt. Joe got back in his original body, and then he got to perform with Dorothy Ann Williams. So 22 was actually upset, and she just stayed in the world, because apparently right when they got back into the soul world, they actually found out that 22 had an earth pin, if you want to call it that. But then she got mad at Joe and just like, you know what, you just take it. From that, of course, he felt kind of upset, but then he's like, well, I'm going to perform. But after he did perform, he did feel kind of a little upset, because he's like, well, I fulfilled my purpose. But yet, it's just like, what now? What is there to do now that I got to be in a band now? But overall, with this movie, it was actually really great. I know I gave almost like the whole summary to it, which I technically want to do that because it's a review. I know there's lots of spoilers in it. But it's a good movie, and I feel like it's a little deep, because especially whenever 22 was talking to his mom, I feel like that was kind of good, because he standed up, because his mom, I guess, wanted to be like a teacher, because she said, well, we need more teachers in life, but he wanted to be something else, which was a musician with a band. But when 22 stand up for Joe, which I think Joe helped her, it kind of felt more reasonable, and his mom actually understood, because with that, she actually went to one of his concerts, so that was very, very supportive. Now, the thing is, I feel like towards the ending, it got a little bit more dark, because with 22, she went to, like, this little bad creature, and so she was trying to figure out, like, what to do in life, but then after that, she's like, you know what, I've been hurt, no one wants to help me. It's not that no one wants to help her, it's just, she originally said she don't want to go to Earth, but then now that she actually got to Earth, she's like, I had a purpose, but now that I had that purpose, someone took it away from me. And then that's why Joe was trying to help her. And once he told her what's going on, then she finally got back to her normal self. And she finally got into Earth now. Now, here's the one part about the ending, is that I like it, but I don't like it, because I feel like it's a bit of a cliffhanger. Because the reason with that is because Joe had a second chance. But originally, he was going to be like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go to the great beyond, and I'm just going to live my life there. But then after that, one of the Jerrys came along, and they said, you know what? So if you help 22 out, we're going to give you a second chance. And he technically took it, which I guess that's great. But I feel like, I'm not saying he should die. I'm not saying that. But I guess, you've already had your purpose and everything, you should go. But with him taking the second chance, I feel like that's also great. But the bad thing about it is just, to me, I feel like, because what they did is that they just had Joe walk out of his house and they said, you know what, I'm going to live my second life. Or I'm going to live my life, or something like that, because life does have purpose in it. But the problem is, you have to really think about it, because I feel like what they should have done with the ending is that they should just have, like, more voiceover, and they should have other scenes, like, Joe being with Connie, or him still being with the band. I just felt like they should have done more on the ending, but I just felt like I'm not saying the ending was that bad, but it's just, I feel like they should have done a little bit more on it, because it just seems a little too flat. I felt like it had a purpose, but it didn't. So overall, the movie was actually really good. It did had a very good story. To me, as I said, the beginning was kind of slow, but then through the middle, it picked up speed, and I feel like towards the ending, it kind of went a little too fast. You're just like, okay, what just happened? And as again on the ending, I wish they did a little better on that. Now the characters, I will say, Joe Gardner is actually my most favorite. 22 is my second favorite. The other characters, they are good. You get to know them all. They're okay, but they were actually really good. And I like how they were trying to go more for the African American culture, which was really awesome, especially with the barbershop scene. That was really amazing. And, because 22, even though Joe talks about jazz all the time, 22 stepped it up, and she's like, hey, what about your life? 22 was trying to live her life through Joe, and, just saying, this is all about me, sort of, in a way, but, I'm just trying to experience my life, while Joe was just like, no, we have one focus, and it's me trying to get in my body and being performed. Which, I understand some people are really greedy, but I understand he wanted to be back in his own body. But as again, at least 22 got the experience of being on Earth. When she found her purpose, she's like, you know what? Maybe my purpose is walking. Maybe my purpose is, looking at stargazing. I don't really remember what her purpose was, because she did get her Earth badge. But as again, she did found a purpose on Earth, and now she's like, I want to live Earth. Now, the one thing about the ending as well, which I wish they would have done it as well, it's just whenever 22 went to Earth, what happened to her? We don't know if she's a little kid. We don't know if she's an adult. We don't know what happened to her. All we know is that she's on Earth now, living her life. But as again, Soul was very good. It might be a little deep for kids, but I do recommend people watching it because it is good. This does kind of go more down on death, because especially with Coco, that does talk about life and death, because it does talk about the Mexican culture, but it also does talk about, how we should remember families. Now, I will say one Easter egg, I don't know if it's true or not, but there's a scene on the subway where there's this guy playing the guitar, and I may be wrong, but his guitar looks exactly like Hector's, and I may be wrong, but it just looks like it. Pixar does like to have a lot of Easter eggs on it as well. It's just I don't really catch them that much. And it's just, as again, especially with Pete Docter making Inside Out, Up, and Monster Inc., it does have a good, fulfilling story. Even though Soul does talk about life and death, even more death-wise. So with Up, it does go more into detail about, well, it doesn't really go more into detail, it just talks about, how Elliot does die, and that is a little bit upsetting, but it's just, Soul kind of goes more beyond the death, even though it's not, religious-wise, but it does go more beyond it. Now, another thing is that Soul actually does have a good purpose in it. So even though with Soul right now, I will say they are improving. With Pixar animating for so long, they have been improving. I think the first movie I've ever seen when they improved something, I gotta say, was Coco. There might have been a movie beforehand, but as again with Coco, they really improved it. And then by the time they got to Soul, I wouldn't say it's really realism, but it almost looks real. And then after that is more cartoony at the same time. The lighting was so beautiful. The visual was so beautiful. And very surprisingly for the first time, because we know Pixar, they're all about 3D animation. But when you get to the Jerrys and Terrys, they're actually 2D. And I'm just like, what? We got 2D characters now? Which technically, I don't think they're really hand-drawn. I think they're like hand-drawn computer-generated. I'm not sure. But they were actually 2D, 3D-ish, if you want to put it that way. But even though I did give a whole summary of the movie, from my opinion, as I said, the movie was actually really good. It was very touchy. And, you know, it's just like every Pixar movie. There's just always got to be that heartwarming. And as again, there was some weaknesses and then there was some strength into it. But as again, the whole story was good. The character, the visual, everything was good about it. So if I have to recommend this to anyone, I would say yes, I do recommend it. Now, I think it would have been better if it was in theaters, so people would see it, but with people having Disney Plus now, I think that is also a good way to show it, and also considering it was free. So this whole movie was actually really good. It does have a good purpose of it, and as I said before, things you gotta look out for is that, you know, you gotta be careful what you say to people, and the one thing it says in the movie is that, you know, you just gotta live your life, even though life may be miserable, terrible, whatever you want to call it, but it's just you gotta live your life, and you just gotta fulfill your dreams and purpose, because, you know, if you have a dream, if you want to achieve it, you just gotta keep living, and you just gotta keep wishing upon that dream, because one day your dream will come true. And as again, I just want to give y'all my review, and yeah, so this was actually really good. I'm rambling on now, so I hope y'all like this video and give it a like, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye! Towards the ending, it showed all the purpose and things that 22 actually liked, and it showed all the things that she have enjoyed, and then Joe was actually getting flashbacks of what 22 was seeing and the things that she was enjoying on Earth before 22 and Joe had their huge argument. And then it shows a summary, or it shows a flashback of how Joey had a good life whenever he was little with his dad, his mom, and all the things that he loved in his life. And now he's just feeling bad that he wants 22 to have a good life, but he took it away from her.